Welcome to Sum It Up, Sermon Updates Midweek, where I get to talk about my sermon from last week. So that would be the sermon for August 28th. Today is August 31st, 2022. We're in a sermon series called Growing in Christ. It's more than just the beginning. This sermon series has tried to explain, demonstrate that in Christ we have been given everything we need for life and godliness. So we have no reason to not grow in Christ and become something different than we are. Looking at 2 Peter, the first chapter, the first 15 verses, particularly verses 3 through 15, Paul says we have everything, Peter says we have everything we need for a godly life. And then he goes on to tell us we need to add to our faith goodness, knowledge, self-control. And he goes through this list of things we need to add. And the description of adding there is not adding like a sequential order where you add one thing after another. One thing leads to another. It's more akin to an ancient form of the word that was used to describe a choir holding hands dancing around. Adding as in adding in together, adding them all together. I've used the analogy that it's these characteristics, these traits are like a toolbox that we have, and we need to utilize what God has given us. Interestingly, this characteristic, the next to last one, is mutual affection, brotherly love, brotherly kindness. Philadelphia is what it is. And to me, the interesting part about this word is the mutual part of it. I mentioned in my message about mutual submission that Paul tells us that men and women should have toward one another in marriage. But actually, before he talks about wives and husbands, he talks about all of us, that we need to submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. There's a mutuality there. Submit to one another. We both do it. Not one of us, not somebody does it real well, somebody does it poorly. It's we do it together. If you don't have mutual submission, you don't have mutual submission. It's something else. If there's not mutual affection, then it's something else. One of the things we're called to do as Christians is to have a kindness, have a love, have a fidelity for our brothers and sisters in Christ. It has nothing to do with common traits, characteristics, what we like, not even what church we attend. Because we are in Christ, we are supposed to have a mutual affection for the brothers and sisters in Christ. So, how mutually affectionate are you? Because the question isn't how affectionate are other people to you. The question is how affectionate are you to others? Just like I talk to couples about in premarital counseling. The question isn't does one of you submit? The question is do you both? And that always starts with you yourself. All you can do is your part. Well, in this mutual affection between brothers and sisters in Christ, you can only do your part. But are you doing your part? Are you mutually affecting one another? Are you showing kindness toward your brothers and sisters in Christ? Have a wonderful week. God bless.